So what's up, you guys? This is Devin from Project Sax, but you already know that. Today we're going to be talking about scales. Now, scales. First off, this whole scales talk thing, got started from a comment. I forget your name, but please, I will list it somewhere around here if I remember. But I know somebody in the comments had actually asked me, can you give me some advice about scales? Of course I can. Scales are the basics of all music. In my opinion, scales are your bread and butter. You gotta know your scales because your scales dictate the keys. So basically the keys are basically, have you ever heard someone singing and you're like, they're out of key, they're out of key? This is what they mean. There's a group of notes in a scale, and that scale has its own key, whether it be the key of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and the half steps between, or the sharp and flat keys. Now, what you need to understand is that in these keys, you have a certain notes that you need to hit to be in that key. Now, advanced musicians can take what they know from the key and branch outside of it. So let's give an example. We have the key of B flat. This is concert B flat. Now, in concert B flat, for let's say the alto saxophone, we start on G. That's G major for the saxophone. Concert B flat is G major for the saxophone. Most saxophone players already know this. This is like the first scale that you learn. This is the first key that you learn. Now, scales are directly related to the keys. So basically, since you're in G major, play every note that corresponds in the key of G. So basically, in the key of G, you're playing G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G again. Now, those notes are in the key of G. When you say G major, you speak in the key of G. Now, you can go to different modes, but we'll get to that later. Now you need to know the major scale, because the major scale is based off of all Western music. Now, Western music is like one of the most popular styles of music out there. So if you learn your major scales, you learn the majority, of what people are playing today and what you're probably hearing on the radio. Even in a lot of contemporary jazz songs, you'll hear it based off of these Western keys, well, not Western keys, but this Western music theme of the Iowan major scale. Iowan is just the name of the major scale. Now, basically, those names, Iowan, Dorian, basically these are names dictated from pretty much either where the scale comes from or something else. But you have different scales that dictate different things and have different names. So basically, the major scales, Western music. Basically, that's the major part of the major word. But major scales really do broaden your horizon when it comes to music, because when you learn the major scales, you learn a lot of different tones in one key, and it's so efficient for you to learn your major scale that these not necessarily tone, but the actual sound of the major scale really does. It really does help you in a lot of ways, whether it be improvising, whether it be sight reading, whether it be learning a song. Say for instance, sight reading. When you're sight reading, when you actually learn the key of B flat, which is G major for the alto saxophone. I speak in alto saxophone phrase, or wording, because I want to get to the meat of the saxophone players, because most of the saxophone players start on alto, because that's the primary saxophone. Back to what I was saying. When you're playing in the key of G, or concert B flat for the alto saxophone, you're playing the notes from that scale. So basically, I'm going to play the concert B flat on the soprano. Okay, now that's concert C for the soprano, but for alto saxophone, you're playing that G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, right? When you're sight reading, you're going to see that labeled in your key signature. Your key signature is where that big swirly thing at the beginning of the music is, or big in reference to the actual styles, but the actual treble clef, beside it, it has either sharps on the little lines. Beside it, it'll have the either sharps or flats or nothing beside it. You know, that dictates the key you're in. So if you have 1 sharp, that dictates our key, the key of B flat. 1 sharp means you're playing your F sharp and not your F natural when you're going up the scale pattern. Now, the scale pattern pretty much it's either a series of whole steps or half steps. This basically just says, you know, this is how far or this is the distance between the notes from each other, you know, whole step, half step, basically. It's just going up steps, basically. So basically when you play a scale, you go up and you go down. It's like a ladder for everything. It actually dictates a lot more than just playing a series of notes and going back down a series of notes. It actually gets you acclimated to your horn. Like when you go up and down, not necessarily in the scale wise, but when you're going up and down doing other stuff in music and or improvising, you actually basing it off that scale whether you know it or not, because everything that you hear, if it's good, most of the time, in most cases, they're based off those scales. Scales are like stories. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Rising, a climax, and a falling action. Basically, this is how our brains really decipher music now. This is how music is really based, you know. So in my opinion, the scales are your bread and butter. It's what you really need to start out with. It's what you need to warm up with. It's what you need to go back to when you're, you know, confused about a song. You know, this will dictate what you need to know. It's like your ABCs. It's like your 1, 2, 3s, right? So basically, say you got a complex math equation. This is like practical application. If you got a complex math application, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go back to your 1, 2s, and 3s, and then you're gonna go back to your order operations. And then you're gonna do whatever you can do with your basics to figure out the complex, right? This is exactly the same. In music, when you have big, complicated key signatures, what do? You don't sit there and try to, you know, force yourself to learn it. Try to find out how this relates to the actual scale that is based off of. And 99.9% of the time, music is based off of scale. You can have a free reign music, you know, something like a free writing for music, you know, where it's not really based off, but you rarely ever hear that because many people don't really get acclimated because it's not like Western style music or any type of music that's scale based. So let me slow it down for you guys. Scales are like your bread and butter for your music, right? You know that, right? You need to learn as many scales as you possibly can, but generally for scales, there are a lot of different scales and different scale types and modes, and you're not going to learn it all in one day. I promise you, you won't. Music doesn't allow it. You might learn something about each scale mode every day, but or in one day, but you won't learn every scale in one day. It's a process that's going to take lots and lots of time. Like anything else worth doing, you have to spend some time doing it, right? Now, it's going to be hard. You know, some of these scales are not easy, but once you get it, you get used to your horn, whether it be the chromatic scale, whatever it be. You know, you know how to do it. You know how to do it efficiently. Now, it's not all boring in books. You know, a lot of hardcore teachers might tell you, "Oh, it's hard. Just read this book and get out the book and do this." It's not that hard. Actually, you can find some riveting, you know, likes in the scales. You know, you can. Well, I use likes as now, I guess, a separate word now, a different type of word now, because I've been on Facebook too much. But you can pretty much like scales and learning about scales. You can like it. So it's not nothing that you should shun. You know, there's 12 major scales. Now, if you learn all 12 major scales, a lot of the other scales aren't that hard to learn because 12 major scales, they really do book you on, and these are the first, you know, these are the first ones that you most of the time you learn in all Western style music books. You go to the music store, you'll see major scales, and you might see a minor scale or two. But mostly major scales is what they really want you on when you first starting, because that's your bread and butter. Now, back to like it. You'll like it. If you find a scale, you can find many other different scales. You can find bebop scales. You can find blues scales are my favorite. But when you actually are playing these scales, when you get down the something new to the scale, but do the scale like you normally done it, but you know, go to the ninth of the scale. That's the ninth step. That's just an extra note in the key scale signature. So you know, and just play with the actual key signature, because that's how a lot of people improv. They improv off the key of the note, the key of this. You know, it's a lot of stuff that you can do when you learn scales. So don't forsake it, and don't say, oh, well, I'm not going to learn scales because they're hard. No, take it slow. I memorized all 12 of my major scales, and you know, it was hard for me at first, but you know, once I got into it, and it was over. You know, and then learn your arpeggios, because they'll help you with chord tones and jumping of the notes. That's layman's terms for you. When we go up in our intervals and our notes, we go up certain intervals, whether it be 1, 3, 5, or you know, flat to third, flat to seventh. All those intervals will be, you know, they will help you in learning the actual major scale and learning how chords work. So learn your arpeggios as well, and that's pretty much it. But learn your scales, because when you learn that major scale, the actual sound of the overall scale will give you a good grasp on how music is played and how music sounds and references scales today. My name is Devin, and I hope this helps.